What's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel. My name is Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary. Today is November 22nd, 2025, about 8:30 p.m. where I'm at right now. And we are continuing our second part of our 16th book in our Books React series. This is Binti by the Nigerian-American female author Nnedi Okorafor. And it's a science fiction novella about this. Hear me out. Hear me out, bro. All right. In the future, right, all the white people convert to Islam, and they call themselves Kush. But there are still African tribes living in the deserts of Namibia, particularly the famous Himba people who cover themselves in red clay and also put their dreadlocks in red coating as well. But there's this one very smart Himba girl who goes off into outer space to go to a university mostly populated by aliens. And while she is on the living shrimp spaceship, she is attacked by a group of tentacle jelly bean monsters called the Mercenaire. I forgot the exact name, but yeah, this is the premise. So in the first part of the book, you should check it out in the first episode. We're going to pick up where we left off, where our main character, Binti, is trapped inside the giant shrimp spaceship floating in space while the evil aliens are outside of her door, and she's about 120 light years from the university, or something like that. Let's go. 72 hours later, I was still alive, but I'd run out of food and had very little water left. Me and my thoughts in that small room, no escape outside. I had to stop crying. I couldn't afford to lose water. The toilet facilities were just outside my room, so I'd been forced to use the case that carried my beaded jewelry collection. All I had was my jar of otjize, some of which I used to clean my body as much as possible. I paced, recited equations, and was sure that if I didn't die of thirst or starvation, I'd die by fire from the currents I'd nervously created and discharged to keep myself busy. I looked at the map yet again and saw what I knew I'd see. We were still heading at Umza Uni, but why? I whispered. Security will. I shut my eyes, trying to stop myself from completing the thought yet again. But I could never stop myself, and this time was no different. In my mind's eye, I saw a bright yellow beam zip from Umza Uni and the ship scattering in a radiating mass of silent light and flame. I got up and shuffled to the far side of my room and back as I talked. But suicidal Meduse, it just doesn't make sense. Maybe they don't know how to. By the way, the Meduse are the aliens. That was the Meduse, not the Merce, the Meduse. Anyway. There was a slow knock at the door, and I nearly jumped to the ceiling. Then I froze, listening with every part of my body. Other than the sound of my voice, I hadn't heard a thing from them since that first 24 hours. Since those first 24 hours, since the attack, since the Medusa attacked her ship, she hadn't heard anything from them since she locked herself in her room. The knock came again. The last knock was hard, more like a kick, but more near the bottom of the door. Leave me alone, I screamed, grabbing my Adon. My words were met with a hard bang at the door and an angry, harsh hiss. I screeched and moved as far from the door as my room would permit, nearly falling over my largest suitcase. Think. No weapons except the Adon, and I didn't know what made it a weapon. Everyone was dead. I was still 48 hours from safety or being blown up. They say that when faced with a fight you cannot win, you can never predict what you will do next. But I'd always known I'd fight until I was killed. It was an abomination to commit suicide or to give up your life. I was sure that I was ready. The Meduse were very intelligent. They'd find a way to kill me despite my Edon. Nevertheless, I didn't pick up the nearest weapon. I didn't prepare for my last violent, rabid stand. Instead, I looked my death square in the face, and then I surrendered to it. I sat on my bed and waited for my death. Already my body felt as if it were no longer mine. I'd let it go. And in that moment, deep in my submission, I laid my eyes on my Edon and stared at its branching, splitting, dividing blue fractals. And I saw it. I really saw it. And all I could do was smile and think, how did I not know? I sat in the landing chair beside my window, hand rolling otjize into my plaits. I looked at my reddened hands, brought them to my nose, and sniffed. Oily clay that sang of sweet flowers, desert wind, and soil. Home, I thought, tears stinging my eyes. I should not have left. I picked up the Edon, looking for what I'd seen. I turned the Edon over and over before my eyes. The blue object whose many points I'd rubbed, pressed, and stared at, and pondered for so many years. More thumping came from the door. Leave me alone, I muttered weakly. I smeared otjize onto the point of the Edon with the spiral that always reminded me of a fingerprint. I rubbed it in a slow circular motion. My shoulders relaxed as I calmed. Then my starved and thirsty brain dropped into a mathematical trance like a stone dropped into deep water, and I felt the water envelop me as down, down I went. My clouded mind cleared and everything went silent and motionless, my fingers still polishing the Edon. I smelled home, heard the desert wind blowing grains of sand over each other. My stomach fluttered as I dropped deeper in, and my entire body felt sweet and pure and empty and light. The Edon was heavy in my hands, so heavy that it would fall right through my flesh. Oh, I breathed, realizing that there was now a tiny button in the center of the spiral. This was what I'd seen. It had always been there, but now it was as if it were in focus. I pushed it with my index finger. It depressed with a soft click, and then the stone felt like warm wax, and my world wavered. There was another loud knock at the door. Then through the clearest silence I'd ever experienced, so clear that the slightest sound would tear its fabric, I heard a solid, oily, low voice say, "Girl." I was catapulted out of my trance, my eyes wide, my mouth yawning in a silent scream. "Girl," I heard again. I hadn't heard a human voice since the final screams of those killed by the Medusa, over 72 hours ago. I looked around my room. I was alone. Slowly, I turned and looked out of the window beside me. There was nothing out there for me but the blackness of space. "Girl, you will die," the voice said slowly. Soon. I heard more voices, but they were too low to understand. "Suffering is against the way. Let us end you." I jumped up and the rush of blood made me nearly collapse and crash to the floor. Instead, I fell painfully to my knees, still clutching the Edon. There was another knock at the door. "Open this door," the voice demanded. My hands began to shake, but I didn't drop my Edon. It was warm, and a brilliant blue light was glowing from within it now. A current was running through it so steadily that it made the muscles of my hand constrict. I couldn't let go of it if I tried. "I will not," I said through clenched teeth. "Rather die in here on my terms." The knocking stopped. Then I heard several things at once, scuffling at the door, not toward it, but away. Terrified moaning and wailing. More voices, several of them. "This is evil. It carries shame," another voice said. This was the first voice I heard that sounded high-pitched, almost female. The shame she carries allows her to mimic speech. "No, it has to have sense for that," another voice said. "Evil. Let me deactivate the door and kill it." "Okwu, you will die if you—" "I will kill it," the one called Okwu growled. "Death will be my honor. We're too close now. We can't have—" "Me," I shouted suddenly. "Oh, Okwu," calling its name. Addressing it so directly sounded strange on my lips. I pushed on. "Okwu, why don't you talk to me?" I looked at my cramped hands. From within it, from my Edon, possibly the strongest current I'd ever produced, streamed in jagged, connected, bright blue branches. It slowly etched and lurched through the closed door, a line of connected, bright blue, tree-like branches that shifted in shape but never broke their connection. The current was touching the Medusa, connecting them to me, and though I'd created it, I couldn't control it now. I wanted to scream. revolted, but I had to save my life first. I am speaking to you, I said. Me. Silence. I still don't know what the Edon is. I don't know if this is like an iPhone 14. I don't know what the hell she has in her hand. I don't know, man. It sounds like some alien technology, but it's also the fact that she found it in the deserts of Namibia. So is this ancient human technology? I mean, this is taking place in the far, 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 far future. So maybe we invented technology that we ended up forgetting about that was able to communicate with the aliens. I am so confused. What is happening here? Anyway, I slowly stood up, my heart pounding. I stumbled to the shut door on aching, trembling legs. The door's organic steel was so thin, but one of the strongest substances on my planet. Where the current touched it, tiny green leaves unfurled. I touched them, focusing on the leaves and not the fact that the door was covered with a sheet of gold, a super communication conductor, nor the fact of the Medusa just beyond my door. I heard a rustle, and I used all of my strength not to scuttle back. I flared my nostrils as I grasped the Edon. The weight of my hair on my shoulders was assuring. My hair was heavy with Otjize, and this was good luck and the strength of my people, even if my people were far, far away. The loud bang of something hard and powerful hitting the door made me yelp. I stayed where I was. Evil thing, I heard the one called Okwu say. Of all the voices, that one I could recognize. It was the angriest and scariest. The voice sounded spoken, not transmitted in my mind. I could hear the vibration of the va in evil, and the hard, breathy the in thing. Did they have mouths? I'm not evil, I said. I heard whispering and rustling behind the door. Then the more female voice said, "Open this door." "No." They muttered among themselves. Minutes passed. I sunk to the floor, leaning against the door. The blue current sunk with me, streaming through the door at my shoulder. More green leaves bloomed there. Some fell down my shoulder onto my lap. I leaned my head against the door and stared down at them. Green tiny leaves of green tiny life when I was so close to death. I giggled and my empty belly rumbled and my sore abdominal muscles ached. Then, quietly, calmly, "You are understanding us." This was the growling voice that had been calling me evil. Okwu. "Yes," I said. "Humans only understand violence." I closed my eyes and felt my weak body relax. I sighed and said, "The only thing I have killed are small animals for food, and only with swift grace, and after prayer and thanking the beast for its sacrifice." I was exhausted. "I do not believe you. Just as I do not believe you will not kill me if I open the door. All you do is kill." I opened my eyes. Energy that I didn't know I still had rippled through me, and I was so angry that I couldn't catch my breath. Like you, killed my friends." I coughed and slumped down weakly. "My friends," I whispered, tears welling in my eyes. "Oh, my friends." "Humans must be killed before they kill us," the voice said. "You're all stupid," I spat, wiping my tears as they kept coming. I sobbed hard and then took a deep breath, trying to pull it together. I exhaled loudly, snot flying from my nose. As I wiped my face with my arm, there were more whispers. Then the higher-pitched voice spoke. "What is this blue ghost you have sent to help us communicate?" "I don't know," I said, sniffing. I got up and walked to my bed. Moving away from the door instantly made me feel better. The blue current extended with me. Why do we understand you?" Okwu asked. I could still hear its voice perfectly from where I was. I don't know," I said, sitting on my bed and then lying back. "No Medusa has ever spoken to a human, except long ago." "I don't care," I grunted. "Open the door. We won't harm you. No." There was a long pause, so long that I must have fallen asleep. I was awakened by a sucking sound. At first I paid no mind to it, taking the moment to wipe off the caked snot on my face with my arm. The ship made all sorts of sounds, even before the Medusa attacked. It was a living thing, and like any beast, its bowels gurgled and quaked every so often. Then I sat up straight as the sucking sound grew louder. The door trembled. It buckled a bit and then completely crumpled, the gold plating on the outside now visible. The stale air of my room whooshed out into the hallway, and suddenly the air cooled and smelled fresher. There stood the Medusa. I could not tell how many of them, for they were transparent, and when they stood together, all I could see were a tangle of translucent tentacles and undulating domes. I clutched the Edon to my chest as I pressed myself on the other side of the room, against the window. It happened fast, like desert wolves who attack travelers at night back home. One of the Medus shot toward me. I watched it come. I saw my parents, sisters, brothers, aunts, and uncles all gathered at a remembrance for me, full of pain and loss. I saw my spirit break from my body and return to my planet, to the desert, where I would tell stories to the sand people. Time must have slowed down because the Medusa was motionless, yet suddenly it was hovering over me, its tentacles hanging an inch from my head. I gasped, bracing myself for pain, and then death. Its pink, withered tentacle brushed my arm firmly enough to rub off some of the haute giselle there. Soft, I thought, smooth. There it was, so close now, white like the ice I'd only seen in pictures and entertainment streams. Its stinger was longer than my leg. I stared at it, jutting from its bundle of tentacles. It crackled and dried, wisps of white mist wafting from it, inches from my chest. Now it went from white to dull light gray. I looked down at my cramped hands, the Edon between them. The current flowing from it washed over the Medusa and extended beyond it. Then I looked up at the Medusa and grinned. I hope it hurts, I whispered. The Medusa's tentacles shuddered, and it began to back away. I could see its pink, deformed tentacle, part of it smeared red with my haute giselle. You are the foundation of evil, it said. It was the one called Oku. I nearly laughed. Why did this one hate me so strongly? She still holds the shame, I heard one say from near the door. Oku began to recover as it moved away from me. Quickly it left with the others. Okay, this is a wild story. I kind of don't want the whole story just to be hostage of this young girl inside the shrimp butt while these jellyfish attack her. This is kind of silly. I kind of want her to go to the university and just move on, but I'm also kind of interested to see if she'll form a friendship with the Medusa. I don't know. What is happening here? 10 hours passed. I had no food left, no water. I packed and repacked my things. Keeping busy staved off the dehydration and hunger a bit, though my constant need to urinate kept reminding me of my predicament. And movement was tricky because the Edon's current still wouldn't release my hands' muscles, but I managed. I tried not to indulge in my fear of the Medusa, finding a way to get the ship to stop producing and circulating air and maintaining its internal pressure, or just coming back and killing me. Okay, so yeah, I guess that's a plot hole, but maybe the Medusa have another plan. So yeah, they could just shut off the air or, just straight up kill her in her sleep. I wonder why they're not just doing that. When I wasn't packing and repacking, I was staring at my Edon, studying it. The patterns on it now glowed with the current. I needed to know how it was allowing me to communicate. I tried different soft equations on it and received no response. After a while, when not even hard equations affected it, I lay back on my bed and let myself tree. This was my state of mind when the Medusa came in. What is that? I screamed. I'd been gazing out the window, so I heard the Medusa before I saw it. What? I shrieked, breathless. What is what? Oku, the one who tried to kill me. Contrary to how it had looked when it left, it was very much alive, though I could not see its stinger. What is the substance on your skin? It asked firmly. None of the other humans have it. Of course they don't, I snapped. It is haute giselle. Only my people wear it, and I'm the only one of my people on the ship. I'm not Kush. What is it? It asked, remaining in the doorway. Why? It moved into my room and it held up the Edon and quickly said, mostly clay and oil from my homeland. Our land is desert, but we live in the region where there is sacred red clay. Why do you spread it on your skins? Because my people are sons and daughters of the soil, I said. And it's beautiful. It paused for a long moment, and I just stared at it, really looking at the thing. It moved as if it had a front and a back, and though it seemed to be fully transparent, I could not see its solid white stinger within the drapes of hanging tentacles. Whether it was thinking about what I'd said or considering how best to kill me, I didn't know, but moments later it turned and left. And it was only after several minutes, when my heart rate slowed, that I realized something odd. Its withered tentacle didn't look as withered. Where it had been curled up tightly into itself, now it was merely bent. It came back 15 minutes later, and immediately I looked to make sure I'd seen what I knew I'd seen. And there it was, pink and not so curled up. That tentacle had been different when Oku had accidentally touched me and rubbed off my ochize. Give me some of it, it said, gliding into my room. I don't have any more, I said, panicking. I only had one large jar of ochize, the most I'd ever made in one batch. It was enough to last me until I could find red clay on Umza Uni and make more. And even then, I wasn't sure if I'd find the right kind of clay. It was another planet. Maybe it wouldn't have clay at all. In all my preparation, the one thing I didn't take enough time to do was research the Umza Uni planet itself. So focused I was on just getting there. All I knew was that though it was much smaller than Earth, it had a similar atmosphere, and I wouldn't have to wear a special suit or adaptive lungs or anything like that. But its surface could easily be made of something my skin couldn't tolerate. I couldn't give all my ochize to this Medusa. This was my culture. The chief knows of your people. You have much with you. If your chief knows my people, then he will have told you that taking it from me is like taking my soul, I said, my voice cracking. My jar was under my bed. I held up my edan, but Oku didn't leave or approach. Its curled pink tentacle twitched. I decided to take a chance. It helped you, didn't it, your tentacle? It blew out a great puff of its gas, sucked it in, and left. It returned 5 minutes later with 5 others. What is that object made of? Oku asked, the others standing silently behind it. I was still on my bed, and I pushed my legs under the covers. I don't know, but a desert woman once said it was made from something called Godstone. My father said there is no such. It is shame, it insisted. None of them moved to enter my room. 3 of them made loud puffing sounds as they let out the reeking gases they inhaled in order to breathe. There is nothing shameful about an object that keeps me alive, I said. It poisons Medusa, one of the others said. Only if you get too close to me, I said, looking straight at it. Only if you try and kill me. Pause. How are you communicating with us? I don't know, Oku. I spoke its name as if I owned it. What are you called? I sat up straight, ignoring the fatigue, trying to pull my bones to the bed. I am Binti Ekopara Zuzu Dambu Kaipka of Namib. I considered speaking its single name to reflect its cultural simplicity compared to mine, but my strength and bravado were already waning. Oku moved forward, and I held up the edan. Stay back, you know what it'll do, I said. However, it did not try to attack me again, though it didn't start to shrivel up as it approached either. It stopped feet away, beside the metal table jutting from the wall, carrying my open suitcase and one of the containers of water. What do you need? It flatly asked. I stared, weighing my options. I didn't have any. Water, food, I said. Before I could say more, it left. I leaned against the window and tried not to look outside into the blackness. Feet away from me, the door was crushed to the side. The path of my fate was no longer mine. I lay back and fell into the deepest sleep I had had since the ship left Earth. The faint smell of smoke woke me up. There was a plate on my bed, right before my nose. On it was a small slab of smoked fish. Beside it was a bowl of water. I sat up, still tightly grasping the edan. I leaned forward and sucked up as much water from the bowl as I could. Then, still holding the edan, I pressed my forearms together and worked the food onto them. I brought the fish up, bent forward, and took a bite of it. Smoky salt goodness burst across my taste buds. The chefs on the ship fed these fish well and allowed them to grow strong and bake copiously. Then they lulled the fish into a sleep that the fish never woke from and slow cooked their flesh long enough for flavor and short enough to maintain texture. I'd ask the chefs about their process as any good himba would before eating it. The chefs were all Kush, and Kush did not normally perform what they called superstitious ritual. But these chefs were Umza Uni students, and they said they did, even lulling the fish to sleep in a similar way. Again, I'd been assured that I was heading in the right direction. The fish was delicious, but it was full of bones, and it was as I was using my tongue to work a long, flexible, but tough bone from my teeth that I looked up and noticed the medusa hovering in the doorway. I didn't have to see the withered tentacle to know it was Okwu. Inhaling with surprise, I nearly choked on the bone. I dropped what was left, spat out the bone, and opened my mouth to speak. Then I closed it. I was still alive. Okwu didn't move or speak, though the blue current still connected us. Moments passed, Okwu hovering and emitting this foul-smelling gasp as it breathed, and me sucking bits of fish from my mouth, wondering if this was my last meal. After a while, I grasped the remaining hunk of fish with my forearms and continued eating. You know, I finally said, to fill the silence, there are a people in my village who have lived for generations at the edge of the lake. I looked at the medusa. Nothing. They know all the fish in it, I continued. There is a fish that grows plenty in that lake, and they catch and smoke them like this. The only difference is that my people can prepare it in such a way where there are no bones. They remove them all. I pulled a bone from between my teeth. They have studied this fish. They have worked it out mathematically. They know where every bone will be, no matter the age, size, sex of the fish. They go in and remove every bone without disturbing the body. It is delicious. I put down the remaining bones. This was delicious too. I hesitated and then said, "Thank you." Okwu didn't move, continuing to hover and puff out gas. I got up and walked to the counter where a tray had been set. I leaned down and sucked up the water from this bowl as well. Already I felt much stronger and more alert. I jumped when it spoke. "I wish I could just kill you." I paused. Like my mother always says, we all wish for many things, I said, touching a last bit of fish in my back tooth. "You don't look like a human Umza Uni student," it said. "Your color is darker, and you..." It blasted out a large plume of gas, and I fought not to wrinkle my nose. "You have oku-oku." I frowned at the unfamiliar word. What is oku-oku? Or oku-oko? That's when it moved for the first time since I'd awakened. Its long tentacle jiggled playfully and a laugh escaped my mouth before I could stop it. It plumed out more gas in rapid succession and made a deep, thrumming sound. This made me laugh even harder. "You mean my hair?" I asked, shaking my thick plaits. "Oku-oku, yes," it said. "Oku-oko," I said. I had to admit, I liked the sound of it. How come the word is different? "I don't know," it said. "I hear you in my language as well. When you said oku-oko, it is oku-oko." It paused. "The kush are the color of the flesh of the fish you ate, and they have no oku-oko. You are red-brown like the fish's outer skin, and you have oku-oko like medusa, though small." Oh, oku-oko are tentacles. So her hair reminds them of the tentacles that they have on their bodies, because they're jellyfish. Is this not the weirdest book of all time? This is one of the weirdest books I've ever read. I've read a lot of books this year, and by far, this is the weirdest. This is the weirdest book I've ever read. Mm. Mm. Who wrote this? Who wrote this? Continuing. "There are different kinds of humans," I said. "My people don't normally leave my planet." Several medusas came to the door and crowded in. Okwu moved closer, pluming out more gas and inhaling it. This time I did cough at the stench of it. Why have you, it asked. You are probably the most evil of your people. I frowned at it, realizing something. It spoke like one of my brothers, Benna. I was born only 3 years after him, yet we'd never been very close. He was angry and always speaking out about the way my people were maltreated by the Kush majority, despite the fact that they needed us in our astrolabs to survive. He was always calling them evil, though he'd never traveled to a Kush country or known a Kush. His anger was rightful, but all that he said was from what he didn't truly know. Even I could tell that Okwu was not an elder among these Medus. It was too hot-headed, and there was something about it that reminded me of me. Maybe it's curiosity. I think I'd have been one of the first to come see if I were it too. My father said that my curiosity was the last obstacle I had to overcome to be a true master harmonizer. If there was one thing my father and I disagreed on, it was that I believed I could only be great if I were curious enough to seek greatness. Okwu was young, like me, and maybe that's why it was so eager to die and prove itself to the others, and that's why the others were fine with it. You know nothing of me, I said. I felt myself grow hot. This is not a military ship. This is a ship full of professors, students, all dead. You killed everyone. It seemed to chuckle. Not your pilot. We did not sting that one. And just like that, I understood. They would get through the university security if the security people thought the ship was still full of living, breathing, unmurdered professors and students. Then the Medus would be able to invade Umza Uni. We don't need you, but that one is useful. That's why we are still on course, I said. No, we can fly this creature ship, it said, but your pilot can speak to the people on Umza Uni in the way they expect. Woo. Sorry. In the way they expect. It paused, then moved closer. See, we never needed you. I felt the force of its threat physically. The sharp tingle came in, white burst in my toes, and traveled up my body to the top of my head. I opened my mouth, suddenly short of breath. This was what fearing death truly felt like, not my initial submission to it. I leaned away, holding up my Edon. I was sitting on my bed, its red covers making me think of my Edon. Sorry. Gotta blow my nose. Oh. Sorry. All right, thank you. Okay. Sorry about that. I've been sick the past week. Sorry if I messed up the flow for anybody following the story. So, all right. I leaned away, holding up my Edon. I was sitting on my bed, its red covers making me think of blood. There was nowhere to go. That shame is the only reason you are alive, it said. Your Oku is better, I whispered, pointing at the tentacle. Won't you spare me for curing that? I could barely breathe. When it didn't respond, I asked, why? Or maybe there is no reason. You think we are like you humans? It asked angrily. We don't kill for sport or even for gain, only for purpose. I frowned. They sounded like the same thing to me, gain and purpose. In your university, in one of its museums, placed on display like a piece of rare meat, is the stinger of our chief, it said. I wrinkled my face, but said nothing. Our chief is, it paused. We know of the attack and mutilation of our chief, but we do not know how it got there. We do not care. We will land on Umza Uni and take it back. So you see, we have purpose. It billowed out gas and left the room. I lay back in my bed, exhausted. But they brought me more food and water. Okwu brought it, and it sat with me while I ate and drank. More fish and some dried up dates and a flask of water. This time I barely tasted it as I ate. It's suicide, I said. What is suicide? It asked. What you are doing, I said. On Umza Uni, there's a city where all the students and professors do is study, test, create weapons. Weapons for taking every form of life. Your own weapons were probably made there. Our weapons are made within our bodies, it said. What of the current killer you used against the Kush in the Meduse-Kush War? I asked. It said nothing. Suicide is death on purpose. Meduse aren't afraid of death, it said, and this will be honorable. We will show them never to dishonor Meduse again. Our people will remember our sacrifice and celebrate. I I have an idea, I shouted. My voice cracked. I pushed forward. Let me talk to your chief, I shrieked. I don't know if it was the delicious fish I'd eaten, shock, hopelessness, or exhaustion. I stood up and stepped to it, my legs shaky and my eyes wild. Let me. I'm a master harmonizer. That's why I'm going to Umza Uni. I am the best of the best, Oku. I can create harmony anywhere. I was so out of breath that I was wheezing. I inhaled deeply, seeing stars explode before my eyes. Let me be. Let me speak for the Meduse. The people in Umza Uni are academics, so they'll understand honor and history and symbolism and matters of the body. I didn't know any of this for sure. These were only my dreams and my experience on those on the ship. Now you speak of suicide for the both of us, it said. Please, I said, I can make your chief listen. Our chief hates humans, Oku said. Humans took his stinger. Do you know what? I'll give you my jar of otjize, I blurted. You can put it all over on every oku oku, your dome. Who knows, it might make you glow like a star or give you superpowers or sting harder and faster or we don't like stinging. Please, I begged, imagine what you will be. Imagine if my plan works. You'll get the stinger back and none of you will have died. You'll be a hero and I get to live, I thought. We don't care about being heroes. But its pink tentacle twitched when it said this. Interesting. That was an interesting little chapter. The Meduse ship was docked beside the third fish. I'd walked across the large, chitinous corridor linking them, ignoring the fact that the chances of my returning were very low. Their ship stank. That's one of the beauties of a black writer. Only a black writer will put a three-word sentence. Their ship stank. I walked into the house. The house stank. Anyway, I was sure of it, even if I couldn't smell it through my breather. Everything about the Meduse stank. I could barely concentrate on the spongy blue surface beneath my bare feet, or the cool gases Oku promised would not harm my flesh, even though I could not breathe it, or the Meduse, some green, some blue, some pink, moving on every surface, floor, high ceiling, wall, or stopping and probably staring at me with whatever they stared with, or the current connected Edon I still grasped in my hands. I was doing equations in my head. I needed everything I had to do what I was about to do. The room was so enormous that it almost felt as if we were outside. Almost. I'm a child of the desert. Nothing indoors can feel like the outdoors to me. But this room was huge. The chief was no bigger than the others, no more colorful. It had no more tentacles than the others. It was surrounded by other Meduse. It looked so much like those around it that Oku had to stand beside it to let me know who it was. The current from the Edon was going crazy, branching out in every direction, bringing me their words. I should have been terrified. Oku had told me that requesting a meeting like this with the chief was risking not only my life, but Oku's life as well. For the chief hated human beings, and Oku had just begged to bring one into their great ship. Spongy, as if it were full of firm jelly beads in the milky pudding my mother liked to make. I could sense currents all around me. These people had deep, active technology built into the walls, and many of them had it running within their very bodies. Some of them were walking astrolabs. It was part of their biology. I adjusted my face mask. The air that it pumped in smelled like desert flowers. The makers of the mask had to have been Kush women. They liked everything to smell like flowers, even their privates. But at the moment, I could have kissed those women, for as I gazed at the chief, the smell of flowers burst into my nose and mouth, and suddenly I was imagining the chief hovering in the desert, surrounded by the dry, sweet-smelling flowers that only bloomed at night. I felt calm. I didn't feel at home, because in the parts of the desert that I knew, only tiny, scentless flowers grew. But I sensed earth. I slowly stopped treeing, my mind clean and clear, but much stupider. I needed to speak, not act, so I had no choice. I held my chin up and then did as Oku instructed me. I sunk to the spongy floor. Then right there, within the ship that brought the death of my friends, the boy I was coming to love, oh God, my fellow Umza Uni human citizens from Earth, before the one who had instructed his people to perform Muj Ha-Kabira, also called the Great Wave of Death, on my people, still grasping the Edon, I prostrated. I pressed my face to the floor, then I waited. This is Binti Ekopara Zuzu Dambu Kaipka of Namib, the one who survives, Oku said. You may just call me Binti, I whispered, keeping my head down. My first name was singular and two-syllabled like Oku's name, and I thought maybe it would please the chief. Tell the girl to sit up, the chief said. If there is the slightest damage to the ship's flesh because of this one, I will have you executed first, Oku, then this creature. Binti, Oku said. His voice was hard, flat. Get up. I shut my eyes. I could feel the Edon's currents working through me, touching everything, including the floor beneath me. And I could hear it, the floor. It was singing, but not words, just humming. Happy and aloof. It wasn't paying attention. I pushed myself up and leaned back on my knees. Then I looked at where my chest had been, still a deep blue. I looked up at the chief. My people are the creators and builders of astrolabs, I said. We use math to create the currents within them. The best of us have the gift to bring harmony, so delicious that we can make atoms caress each other like lovers. That's what my sister said. I blinked as it came to me. I think that's why this Edon works for me. I found it in the desert. A wild woman there once told me that it is a piece of old technology. She called it a godstone. I didn't believe her then, but I do now. I've had it for 5 years, but it only works for me now. I pounded my chest. For me. On that ship full of you after you'd all done that. Let me speak for you. Let me speak to them, so no more have to die. I lowered my head, pressing my Edon to my belly. Just as Oku told me, I could hear others behind me. They could have stung me 1,000 times. You know what they have taken from me, the chief asked. Yes, I said, keeping my head down. My stinger is my people's power, it said. They took it from us. That's an act of war. My way will get your stinger back, I quickly said. Then I braced myself for the rough stab in the back. I felt the sharpness press against the nape of my neck. I bit my lower lip to keep from screaming. Tell your plan, Oku said. I spoke fast. The pilot gets us cleared to land, then I leave the ship with one of you to negotiate with Umza Uni to get the stinger back, peacefully. That will take our element of surprise, the chief said. You know nothing about strategy. If you attack, you will kill many, but then they will kill you. All of you, I said. Ah, I hissed as the stinger pointed at my back was pressed harder against my flesh. Please, I'm just... Chief, Binti doesn't know how to speak, Oku said. Binti is uncivilized. Forgive it. It is young, a girl. How can we trust it? The Medusa beside the chief asked Oku. What would I do? I asked, my face squeezed with pain. Run? I wiped tears from my face. I wiped and wiped, but they kept coming. The nightmare kept happening. You people are good at hiding, another Medusa sneered, especially the females like you. Several of the Medusa, including the chief, shook their tentacles and vibrated their domes in a clear display of laughter. Let Binti put down the Edon, Oku said. I stared at Oku, astonished. What? Put it down, it said. You will be completely vulnerable. How can you be our ambassador if you need that to stay safe from us? It's what allows me to hear you, I shrieked. and it was all I had. The chief whipped one of its tentacles, and every single Medusa in the enormous room stopped moving. They stopped as if the very currents of time stopped. Everything stopped as it does when things get so cold that they become ice. I looked around, and when none of them moved, slowly, carefully, I dragged myself inches forward and turned to see the Medusa behind me. Its stinger was up at the height of where my neck had been. I looked at Okwu, who said nothing. Then at the chief. I lowered my eyes. Then I ventured another look, keeping my head low. Choose, the chief said. My shield, my translator. I tried to flex the muscles in my hands. I was greeted with sharp, intense pain. It had been over 3 days. We were 5 hours from Uni. I tried again. I screamed. The Edon pulsed a bright blue deep within its black and gray crevices, lighting up its loops and swirls, like one of the bioluminescent snails that invaded the edges of my home's lake. When my left index finger pulled away from the Edon, I couldn't hold the tears back. The Edon's blue and white glow blurred before my eyes. My joints popped and the muscles spasmed. Then my middle finger and pinky pulled away. I bit my lips so hard that I tasted blood. I took several quick breaths and then flexed every single one of my fingers at the same time. All of my joints went crack. I heard 1,000 wasps in my head. My body went numb. The Edon fell from my hands. Right before my eyes, I saw it, and I wanted to laugh. The blue current I conjured danced before me, the definition of harmony made from chaos. There was a soft pop as the Edon hit the floor, rolled twice, then stopped. I had just killed myself. My head grew heavy, and all went black. What the hell is happening? My God, this is trippy. This is trippy. This is an acid trip. Ooh. This is Afrofuturism, man. I thought we were going to smoke blunts with the aliens. Teach them how to Dougie. Anyway, moving on. Second chapter, or the next chapter that we'll read. The Medusa were right. I could not have represented them if I was holding the Adon. This was Uni. Someone there would know everything there was to know about the Adon and thus its toxicity to the Medusa. No one at Uni would have believed I was their ambassador unless I let go. Going to the comments, Acti says, I need an animation for this. This would be too trippy as an animation. This would be like watching Keriku, but Keriku meets Adventure Time. Like, what the hell is happening here? Anyway, death. When I left my home, I died. I had not prayed to the seven before I left. I didn't think it was time. I had not gone on my pilgrimage like a proper woman. I was sure I'd return to my village as a full woman to do that. I had left my family. I thought I could return to them when I'd done what I needed to do. Now I could never go back. The Medusa are not what we humans think. They are truth. They are clarity. They are decisive. They are sharp lines and edges. They understand honor and dishonor. I had to earn their honor, and the only way to do that was by dying a second time. I felt the stinger plunge into my spine just before I blacked out, and just after I conjured up the wild line of current that I guided to the Edon. It was a terrible pain. Then I left. I left them. I left that ship. I could hear the ship singing its half-word song and knew it was singing to me. My last thought was to my family, and I hoped it reached them. So did she die? Did she get poked in the butt by that jellyfish stinger and die for real? What the fuck is happening, bruh? I'm sorry for cursing, but damn, what the hell is happening here? Home. I smelled the earth at the border of the desert just before it rained during fertile season. The place right behind the root, where I dug up the clay I used for my otjize and chased the geckos who were too fragile to survive a mile away in the desert. I opened my eyes. I was on my bed in my room, naked except for my wrapped skirt. The rest of my body was smooth with a thick layer of ochize. I flared my nostrils and inhaled the smell of me. Home. I sat up and something rolled off my chest. It landed in my crotch and I grabbed it. The Edon. It was cool in my hand and all dull blue as it had been for years before. I reached behind and felt my back. The spot where the stinger had stabbed me was sore, and I could feel something rough and scabby there. It too was covered with ochize. My astrolabe sat on the curve of the window, and I checked my map and stared outside for a very long time. I grunted, slowly standing up. My foot hit something on the floor. My jar. I put the Edon down and picked it up, grasping it with both hands. The jar was more than half empty. I laughed, dressed, and stared out the window again. We were landing on Umza Uni in an hour, and the view was spectacular. Okay, so I guess maybe she got initiated into the tribe. They, let her live. They poked her in the butt with the big jellyfish stinger, and now she's going to be the representative for the jellyfish creatures so the chief can get his penis back. Okay. They did not come, not to tell me what to do or when to do it. So I strapped myself in the black landing chair beside the window and stared at the incredible sight expanding before my eyes. There were two suns, one that was very small and one that was large but comfortably far away. Hours of sunshine on our parts of the planet were far more than hours of dark, but there were few deserts on Umza Uni. I used my astrolabe and binocular vision to see things up close. Umza Uni, such a small planet compared to Earth. Only 1/3 water. Its lands were every shade of the rainbow. Some parts blue, green, white, purple, red, white, black, orange. And some areas were smooth. Others jagged with peaks that touched the clouds. And the area we were hurtling toward was orange, but interrupted by patches of the dense green of large forest of trees, small lakes, and the hard gray blue forest of tall skyscrapers. My ears popped as we entered the atmosphere. The sky started to turn a light pinkish color, then red-orange. I was looking out from within a fireball. We were inside the air that was being ripped apart as we entered the atmosphere. There wasn't much shaking or vibrating, but I could see the heat generated by the ship. The ship shed its skin the day after we arrived as it readjusted to gravity. We descended from the sky and zoomed between monstrously beautiful structures that made the skyscrapers of Earth look minuscule. I laughed wildly as we descended lower and lower. Down, down we fell. No military ships came to shoot us out of the sky. We landed, and moments after smiling with excitement, I wondered if they would kill the pilot now that he was useless. I had not negotiated that with the Medusa. I ripped off my safety belt and jumped up and then fell to the floor. My legs felt like weights. What is... I heard a horrible noise, a low rumble that boiled to an angry-sounding growl. I looked around, sure there was a monster about to enter my room. But then I realized two things. Okwu was standing in my doorway, and I understood what it was saying. I did as it said, and pushed myself into a sitting position, bringing my legs to my chest. I grasped the side of my bed and dragged myself up to sit on it. Take your time, Okwu said. Your kind do not adjust quickly to Jadivya. You mean gravity? I asked. Yes. I slowly stood up. I took a step and looked at Okwu, then passed it at the empty doorway. Where are the others? Waiting in the dining room. The pilot? I asked. In the dining room as well. Alive? Yes. I sighed, relieved, and then paused, the sound of his speech vibrating against my skin. This was his true voice. I could not only hear at its frequency, but I saw his tentacles quiver as it spoke, and I could understand it. Before, it had just looked like their tentacles were quivering for no reason. Was it the sting? I asked. No, it said. That is something else. You understand, because you truly are what you say you are, a harmonizer. I didn't care to understand, not at the moment. Your tentacle, I said. Your oku. It hung straight, still pink but now translucent like the others. The rest was used to help several of our sick, it said. Your people will be remembered by my people. The more it spoke, the less monstrous its voice sounded. I took another step. Are you ready? Oku asked. I was. I left the Edon behind with my other things. All right, this will be the final section we're going to read right here. Very trippy. It looks like she got stung and now she's a part of the clique. She joined the gang. She joined the gang. She a part of the tentacle gang. Gang. Let me just check the comments real quick, what the people are saying. Hold on. Okay, no other comments right now. Last section we're going to read right here, then we're going to call it a day. Hopefully you enjoyed this very trippy book. Very, very trippy. I was still weak from the landing, but this had to happen fast. I don't know how they broke the news of their presence to Umza Uni authorities, but they must have. Otherwise, how would we be able to leave the ship during the brightest part of the day? I understood the plan as soon as Oku and the chief came to my room. I followed them down the hallway. We did not pass through the dining room where so many had been brutally killed, and I was glad. But as we passed the entrance, I saw all the Meduse in there. Their bodies were all gone. The chairs and tables were all stacked on one side of the large room as if a windstorm had swept through it. Between the transparent folds and tentacles, I thought I glimpsed someone in the red, flowing uniform of the pilot, but I wasn't sure. You know what you will say, the chief said, not a question, but a statement, and within the statement, a threat. I wore my best red shirt and wrapper, made from the threads of well-fed silkworms. I bought it for my first day of class at Umza Uni, but this was a more important occasion. And I'd use fresh otige on my skin and to thicken my plaited hair even more. As I'd palm rolled my plaits, smooth like the bodies of snakes, I noticed that my hair had grown about an inch since I had left home. This was odd. I looked at the very thick, wiry new growth, admiring its dark brown color, before pressing the otige onto it, making it red. There was a tingling sensation on my scalp as I worked the otige in, and my head ached. I was exhausted. I held my otige-covered hands to my nose and inhaled the scent of home. Years ago, I had snuck out to the lake one night with some other girls, and we'd all washed and scrubbed off all of our otige using the lake's salty water. It took us half the night. Then we stared at each other, horrified by what we'd done. If any man saw us, we'd be ruined for life. If our parents saw us, we'd all be beaten, and that would only be a fraction of the punishment. Our families and people we knew would think us mentally unstable when they heard, and that too would ruin our chances of marriage. But above all this, outside of the horror of what we'd done, we all felt an awesome, glorious shock. Our hair hung in thick clumps, black in the moonlight. Our skin glistened, dark brown, glistened, and there had been a breeze that night, and it felt amazing on our exposed skin. I thought of this as I applied the otige to my new growth, covering up the dark brown color of my hair. What if I washed it all off now? If I was the first of my people to come to Umza Uni, would the people here even know the difference? But Oku and the chief came minutes later, and there was no time. Plus, really, this was Umza Uni. Someone would have researched and known of my people, and that person would know I was naked if I washed all my otige off. And crazy. I didn't want to do it anyway, I thought as I walked behind Oku and the chief. There were soldiers waiting at the doorway. Both were human, and I wondered what point they were trying to make by doing that. Just like the photos in the books I read, they wore all blue kaftans and no shoes. You first, the chief growled, moving behind me. I felt one of its tentacles, heavy and smooth, shove me softly in the back right where I'd been stung. The soreness there caused me to stand up taller, and then move softly in a voice that only tickled my ear with this strange vibration. Look strong, girl. following the soldiers and followed by two Meduse. I stepped onto the surface of another planet for the first time in my life. My scalp was still tingling, and this added to the magical sensation of being so far from home. The first thing I noticed was the smell and weight of the air when I walked off the ship. It smelled jungly, green, heavy with leaves. The air was full of water. It was just like the air in the ship's plant-filled breathing chambers. I parted my lips and inhaled, I parted my lips and inhaled it as I followed the soldiers down the open black walkway. Behind me, I heard the Meduse pluming out and sucking in gas. Softly, though, unlike on the ship, we were walking toward a great building, the ship port. We will take you to the Umza Uni Presidential Building, one of the soldiers said to me in perfect Kush. He looked up at the Meduse, and I saw a crease of worry wrinkle his brow. I don't know their language. Can you? I nodded. He looked about 25 and was dark brown skinned like me, but unlike the men of my people, his skin was naked, his hair shaven low, and he was quite short, standing a head shorter than me. Do you mind swift transport? I turned and translated for Okwu and the chief. These people are primitive, the chief responded, but it and Okwu agreed to board the shuttle. All right, that's where we're going to wrap it up. We're going to pick up on this section tomorrow when we read. This is a wild science fiction book. I feel good reading science fiction because I actually really love the genre. But man, oh man, this is trippy. This is trippy. This is a wild book. What do y'all think of this text? Let me know in the comments. We're going to finish this book tomorrow because I'm pretty sure we only have, what, 20 pages to go? Yeah, we only have 20 pages left, so we're going to knock out the last 20 pages tomorrow. Hopefully you enjoyed this. My name's Simon Hill. Be easy out there, and peace.